If you find yourself relocating to British Columbia for whatever reason from other provinces like Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or maybe even on the East Coast, BC, well, we've got some pretty unique characteristics about buying a home out here that you should probably get prepared for before you arrive. This video is going to unveil some pretty substantial differences that it takes when buying a home that are relatively unique to British Columbia that you're not going to experience in other provinces. The good news is if you've bought a home before, you know all this, right? No, you don't. A lot of these are very unique to British Columbia, and the worst thing that could happen is you come out here and you're not prepared for the differences. This video is going to unveil some of the biggest characteristic differences about buying a home in British Columbia and not necessarily experienced by any other province in Canada. By watching this video, you will eliminate the surprises and be better prepared to buy your next home when you relocate to BC. Hey, it's Darren German from the German Group in Surrey, BC. If you're someone that's new to this channel, we have news, updates, and everything we can do to make you a better home buyer or a better home seller in the area that we serve of Surrey, BC. If you get value out of this video and you appreciate the content, do us a favor, like the video and subscribe. Let us know that we're doing a good job. That will also help other would-be home buyers or home sellers find this great content that we work very hard to provide to help you be absolutely effective when it comes time to make your move. So we appreciate you subscribing. Thank you. Let's start this video with a little bit of a story about some clients that we had relocating from Manitoba. They were on an RCMP transfer and were getting transferred to Surrey to become part of the big new Surrey RCMP detachment. Now, they had visited before, they had toured the area previously, but they'd never bought a home in Surrey. And they'd bought many homes. I mean, being in the RCMP, you get transferred quite frequently, probably more frequently than you would normally think. They've lived in various different provinces, but not British Columbia yet. As they experienced purchasing a home and all the trials and tribulations that go along with that, they found some of the things that we do quite interesting. They found some of the things that we do quite unique. They thought some of the practices that we do in British Columbia to be quite stupid. And the worst part was they were relatively underprepared for some of the major differences of buying a home in British Columbia than all other provinces in Canada. It's worth noting that all the provinces are different for different reasons. They all have different regulatory bodies. They all have different provincial governments with different views on real estate. There is different privacy rules from province to province, and there's different organized real estate organizations all throughout Canada, which have different sets of rules, bylaws, and standards for which realtors have to adhere to. Fundamentally, when you buy a home in any of the provinces and you use a realtor, you're going to be well protected because realtors are trained to uphold an incredibly high level of standard when helping a consumer either buy or sell a home, and they're your trusted advisor, there to guide you, advise you, and protect you during the transaction. That's consistent across the country, but what's not consistent is just the way that the business is done. So without further ado, let's jump into these. And we're not talking just term differences either. In British Columbia, as an example, we say strata, whereas most other areas in Canada say condominium or condo. Most of Canada calls conditions conditions, whereas in BC we call them subjects. The word broker is used completely differently across Canada. As an example, in Ontario, a broker is almost every single agent. A broker of record is what we refer to in British Columbia as our managing broker. This is the person that oversees the operations and the realtors within the brokerage that they work for. Call it your day-to-day real estate professional is called a real estate licensee. This is starting to remind me of the debate between anybody from Ontario and BC about the difference between a cottage or a cabin. But we're not going to get into that. It's a cabin, Ontario, sorry. So the biggest one on the list is what the expectation is of a seller in British Columbia for a down payment on a property. And that is usually in and around at least 5% of the purchase price. This is relatively unique to British Columbia, and you can understand the challenges that that creates because, well, properties are relatively expensive in BC, especially in the lower mainland and generally the area of Surrey that me and my real estate team service. So 5% of the purchase price, well, not a lot of people just have 5% of, let's say, $1.5 million sitting idly in their bank account. So this catches a lot of people off guard when they move to BC and are looking to buy a home. Deposits are completely negotiable between you and a seller, but it's really, really difficult to negotiate with a seller when they're used or accustomed to a certain amount and you try and sway from that. Next on our list is the completion and possession dates. In many other provinces across Canada, you will not only complete on the property the same day, but you will also take possession. In fact, normally you would go to your lawyer's office and collect the keys for the home upon completion, and the new house is yours. You can move right in. This is not the case in British Columbia. Typically, the dates of completion and possession are staggered, with possession being at least 1 day behind the completion date. The reasons for this is if there was any issue with completion and maybe you have a subsequent transaction where the seller of the home that you just bought has now bought a home and is waiting on the proceeds that you give them to put towards their new home, and there's an issue, well, we've got problems that are pretty big. This means completion may happen on a Wednesday as an example, but possession might not occur till a Saturday or a Sunday, which is relatively unique to us in British Columbia. I touched on this as well, and one thing that's unique to us in British Columbia, which really just blows my mind that this isn't the way it's done in other provinces, is on the possession day and time where you get the keys to your new home. Well, we as realtors will typically meet you there and walk you through the property, check the property for defects, make sure it looks the same as when you made your original offer on it, which isn't quite the same as what they do in other provinces where you collect the keys from the lawyer, and oftentimes the realtor is not even involved in your very first look at your new home. Pre-possession walkthroughs then in other provinces are really quite common. This is where a buyer will visit the home that they've bought prior to closing on it for another walkthrough. However, in British Columbia, that's really not a practice that you often see. You may visit the house again after you've put your offer in on it and removed your conditions, but typically the seller's not letting you back in the week before they're moving because, well, their life's in turmoil. There's boxes everywhere and it is hectic. Their schedules in meeting their demands of selling and possibly buying another home. Two others that are really unique to BC that I don't want anybody moving to this province and not being prepared for. Well, the first one is the property transfer tax. Other provinces have their versions of this, but if you're someone from Alberta that's relocating to British Columbia and wants to buy a home, be prepared that we have a sliding scale of property transfer tax that can be relatively substantial. As an example, if you're buying a home that is under $2 million and you don't qualify for an exemption, and the exemptions are relatively minor in terms of purchase price, there's not a lot you can buy that's going to qualify for these exemptions, and you need to be a first-time home buyer, you're going to pay 1% on the first $200,000 of that purchase price and 2% on the balance. This is a huge number in tax, and this money on a $1.5 million purchase, as an example, is $28,000 to the provincial government. There's no getting around it. There's no avoiding it. So I will leave a link in the description below about all of the parameters of the property transfer tax and a link to the government's website where you can check that out because you definitely want to be prepared for that. There's a new one in British Columbia as well. And I joke with my realtor colleagues from across the country that BC is kind of like the petri dish for new provisions in real estate. And the newest one that we have as of January of this year is the rescission period. If you're unfamiliar with what the rescission period is, this is where a home buyer can back out of an offer in British Columbia for any reason, regardless of whether they have conditions or subjects on their offer, within 3 business days of getting that offer accepted. This was put in place by the government when the market was a little busier to help extinguish the flurry of activity that was happening and to try and help home buyers from buying homes under undue duress because the market was so busy, or maybe write offers on properties that they really didn't get a sober second thought on, oftentimes going in without conditions. Now, the purpose of telling you this is not to tell you whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. It's in place. However, if a buyer does choose to use their abilities within the rescission period time, they better be prepared to pay the seller a penalty of 0.25% of the purchase price that they agreed to, basically for wasting the seller's time. As I was editing this video, I thought of another one that I really wanted to mention for anybody that's maybe looking to invest in British Columbia. And
that is the fact that we have rent controls in BC. So Ontario has these as well, and I'm not sure of any other provinces. But effectively, you cannot raise the rent to market rate at your own will when you're a landlord. You actually have to follow whatever the province prescribes. They have prescribed 0% increases in the past. They have prescribed as low as 1%, 2%, all that sort of stuff. So investing in BC, you got to be a little bit careful. And there's also no such thing as a fixed term tenancy anymore. So this means that when you put in a tenant into a property and you sign a 1-year lease, that tenant doesn't have to leave after that 1 year. Their tenancy automatically continues on a month to month if they choose to stay. And it's very difficult for you to remove them if you choose to. As a landlord, there's only two ways you can remove a tenant in British Columbia. Either you occupy the property yourself, or somebody buys the home that you're selling and they want to occupy it, or you're doing such a significant renovation that nobody could possibly live in the home. And you actually have to apply to the residential tenancy branch to be able to even do that. So there you go.
Funny, another one just popped in my head as well is actually in British Columbia, the realtors typically will review the strata documentation on our buyer's behalf and have a conversation with them about what we find in there, where that's not as common in other provinces. Usually they will give that responsibility over to the lawyer or a professional strata document reading company, which really isn't a bad idea, to be honest, because there is experts, of course, out there who see those things all the time. So I'm curious, what do you think? Are you moving from another province to British Columbia? And is there anything unique that happens in your province when it comes to buying or selling a home that I've maybe missed in this video? I would love you to leave a comment below and let me know. So anyone that is looking to relocate to BC has the information they need to avoid all the surprises that they might incur. And while you're down there, don't forget to make use of our calendar. If you are someone relocating to British Columbia, or you live in the marketplace that we serve in Surrey, BC, and you're looking to buy or sell a home, you can book a time directly in our calendar to speak with me and my team, and we can let you know how we can help you be successful. Hey, look, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for subscribing, and we'll definitely look forward to seeing you on the next video. Cheers.